I'm so glad we have a president that wants to keep us out of this damn Russian war, this Ukraine war. I'm so glad. Even though Trump's not perfect, and we're going to put belt to ass in Venezuela and some of these other in our hemisphere, but we will dominate our hemisphere. The Americas will be in control by the Americans. That's it. We're staying in our hemisphere. Russia and China can divide up the rest of the world. We can't be the world police anymore. If the UK wants to throw their sons and daughters away, then there's nothing we can do about it. But it's unfortunate that this is what's on the horizon for their country and their people. Candace Owens had a whistleblower, French Foreign Legion. He warned of a coming war in the next 90 days, and they need her to just shut up so the war can happen. I guess we know what the war is going to be. The UK and France are planning on attacking Russia in the Ukraine. Russia will hit France. They will hit London. They're supposed to. They have no choice. Europe is done. And there's 4 nations that have not been participating in this war against Russia, this illegal war against Russia. And those are the nations the United States is going to create treaties with. Hungary, Poland. There's 2 other nations that have not been taken in illegals from Northern Africa, so the globalists have not been able to infiltrate them. They've been able to keep their sovereignty. But make no mistake about it, war is coming, and we're going to live in a new world by February. Because remember, things in history, they don't rhyme, they repeat or something. And the war in the Ukraine, Russia invaded in February. Alex Jones said it was going to happen. It happened exactly when he said. They're going to do it right before the anniversary. And then that's going to be the talk of the town, and no one's going to care about what Candace has to say, or that's what they think is going to happen. But let's listen to these idiot cowards who are going to just throw away precious life for no actual reason to serve the ego of the Zionists. Take a listen.
Sons and daughters, colleagues, veterans will all have a part to play, to build, to serve, and if necessary, to fight. And more families will know what sacrifice for our nation means.
He said his desire was not to shock, but that message is sobering. So Richard quoted the world's largest crowdsourced forecasting site, Metaculus, which suggests there is a 16% probability Russia and any NATO member state will be in direct conflict before 2027. And he made a point of mentioning that he agreed with his good friend Fabien Mandon, the French chief of defence, referencing his recent speech to regional mayors, warning that if France falters because it is not ready to accept losing its children or to suffer economically, then it is at risk.
Listen, people don't realize this. They've already been sending in NATO troops and putting them in Ukrainian uniforms. The Russians are not idiots. They know where they're staying, and it's crazy. They hire all the mercenaries from other countries, the UK, Australia, the United States, Canada, all these, France, Germany. They're putting on Ukrainian uniforms, right? But they have special accommodations. They stay at hotels. The Russians are turning those hotels into dust. And the way they know who these soldiers are is because obviously a lot of them have tattoos. And then they can just, a lot of them put insignias, and you could tell which brigades they're in by their tats. They've been wiping out these countries who have already been started. The war has already been started. So these countries now are going to have to go back to their people not soon before long and explain to where their relatives are that have been not responding. Well, they've been on secret missions in the Ukraine, and they've been dead now for almost a year. Some of them even more. And these countries might as well just go ahead and try to fake attack Russia. All of NATO couldn't stand a snowball's chance in hell, even with the United States. And I don't say that with any happiness. We don't stand a chance against the Russian Federation. Their soldiers are men. They're not confused about their gender and sexuality. They actually have wives and children in Russia that they are willing to die to protect. Our soldiers don't have that. Our soldiers are gay. Our soldiers are black. They joined the militaries because they wanted help paying for that degree in African American studies, and they wanted to get a Camaro. They don't have any pride in the country. There's no pride in the fabric of our society. There's nothing about our culture they love. Apparently, according to them, the country is oppressive and racist, but they don't want to, but not enough for them to want to escape it and move somewhere else, but just enough to complain about it. So you got to think about it. We don't even really have a military anymore. Our country's been so demoralized by the culture itself, and we humor it. Now, don't get me wrong, since Hegseth and Trump took office, it's been getting better. Our recruiting numbers are up, but that element is still there. And we've purged the trans, but we need to purge the Marxists out of our military as well, because what they do is social degradation. Remember, if you look at Nicki Minaj, she gets on the stage and says, "I'm a proud American." All the black people around the country are like, "Why are you a proud American? Don't you hate America? You should hate America. Why don't you?" And they whisper and they drag down everyone around them, even the morale of our soldiers and troops. So that's why those senators came out and said, "Hey, if Trump gives ignore an illegal order." So who the fuck are you to decide what's illegal or not? Your job is to take orders. You have a commander and chief. You're not the commander in chief. Problem is, there are going to be those within the ranks that are going to hear that, and they might attack their own soldiers, their own brothers and sisters in uniforms. They might attack them on these bases when the fighting breaks out. And of course, China's going to make its move on Taiwan. We're going to do a story about that next. But war is coming because the Zionists are losing and the globalist takeover is happening. And this is their last ditch effort to try to keep some sort of control or to save face. All the scandals with Macron, Bibi's going to go to prison, Starmer in the UK. They don't even have a military. They're all hoping that they're going to be able to activate Article 5 and use the American arsenal. But we're out of there. We're protecting our own hemisphere. Going over there and fighting wars or halfway around the world, it just doesn't make sense anymore. But the UK is actually connected by land to Russia. You can drive from the UK to Kiev. So for them, it makes more sense than it does for us. We got two things protecting us from these people. It's called the Pacific and the Atlantic.
Our objective must be to avoid war. But the price of maintaining peace is rising.
He said the threat from Russia was growing and decided to use football as an analogy.
The bookies were saying that there was a 4% chance of Liverpool winning the Premier League. So even saying the chances are remote does not mean the chances are zero. My point is that none of us can say with any certainty what the absolute risk might be. And even those simple binary statements might be easy for people to engage with, they risk instilling panic or complacency. What really matters is the trend. Are the chances of conflict growing? And here I think the evidence is clear that the trend from Russia in particular is worsening.
We do not agree on that. We disagree. The Russians don't want to attack the UK, or they would have. They don't want to attack France, or they would have. They don't want to attack Poland. They just don't want your missiles on their border where you can launch into their country. Remember, NATO's openly called for the extermination of the Russian Federation. They want to chop the country up into small pieces and destroy it the way they did Libya and Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan. And they wanted to go in that direction. They want to kill Putin. The Russians are literally on the ropes fighting for their lives while we're deciding if we're going to attack them unilaterally or all together for nothing. For what? Over the Ukraine? Ukraine's not even a NATO member. Ukraine's not even a member of the EU. Ukraine's not even an ally. But you're willing to risk your sons and daughters for Zelensky, the guy that dresses in a leotard and wears women's heels and plays the piano with his penis? Yeah, go to hell.
And that is the key argument for action.
As a result of increased defence spending and the experiences in Ukraine, he said Russia has a massive, increasingly technically sophisticated and now highly combat experienced military.
Over the past 20 years, Russia has delivered significant defence reform and investment into what were weak and hollowed out armed forces.
That has nothing to do with you if you stop trying to attack them and encircle them. Leave them alone. The Russians don't even want all of Ukraine. They just wanted the Russian-speaking eastern part on their border because, well, those people are ethnically Russian. and they have been getting attacked by the western part of the Ukraine and the Nazis. Now, the Russians have been successful with the denazification campaign of the Ukraine. Congratulations to Putin and the Russian Federation. Nestrovia is what you would say. But now it seems like they're not going to stop. So they're going to have to take all of Ukraine past the Dnieper. They don't want it. They don't want Odessa. They don't want Kiev. Do you know how much trouble it is to manage these colonies that are this far away from the capital? Do you understand how much money it costs in rebuilding infrastructure? Then you got to worry about guerrillas, and you got to worry about people literally starting small revolutions and burning down cities and doing terrorist attacks. They don't want the rest of Ukraine. But they can't allow the western part of Ukraine to all of a sudden talk about they're going to join NATO and then sneak in weapons into their border. Then we have to start this all over again. Now they're remilitarizing the Ukraine, and Russia doesn't even know that they're building up forces again like they did when they stabbed them in the back through with the Minsk agreements, the Minsk Accords. You know, they lied to them and said, okay, we're going to do this treaty. And then the chancellor of Germany, Merkel, she says, we were never planning on making good on the Minsk agreements. We were just lying so that we could buy time to build up the military in the Ukraine. What a fucking scumbag cunt, right? You know, what a motherfucking skunk. She just literally lied to this man, knowing he's a nuclear armed nation, just because she wanted to build up a military. And, you know, all those men are dead now, right? According to our records, the Ukraine had 3 separate militaries. They've all been liquidated. They're all wiped. They're conscripting men in the Ukraine as old as 63 years old and putting them on the front lines because they ran out of people. They ran out of men. It's a big problem with manpower. So how are you going to keep this war going and keep the money flowing to the military industrial complex? Well, we're going to have to try to bring in the UK and France. And France they say they're ready with their foreign legion of 35, 40 people with the Ukraine, 2 battalions. And the Germans, I mean, we literally bombed the shit out of them. They don't want to fight sleep. So, and then it just doesn't make sense. The people in the UK and in Europe are not aligned with the governments. The governments are writing checks that the people's asses don't want to cash. That's why we have the AfD in Germany. We had 7 assassinations in one day. They poisoned 7 people from the AfD at once a few months ago. But we're still the number 1 political party in Germany, gaining the most support and prominence. It's basically the Germany First movement, conservatism. You would call them Republicans in Germany. We're growing. We're not establishment. We don't want to go to war. We really see Russia as an ally. For one thing, they used to get cheap energy from Russia. How do you think they built all those Audi and BMW and Mercedes engines and Rolls Royce? How do you think they were able to have all those smelters and machines to make all that amazing equipment? Well, now since they blew the Nord Stream, there is no more cheap energy from Russia. So they've been basically deindustrialized. So Germany's in a recession. So is France. So is the UK. It's like they're just purposely trying to destroy their societies, as if that was a part of somebody else's agenda. And you got to think about it. What's one of the biggest components of war? It's going to be depopulation, and specifically depopulation of white men. So you got to wonder why you see so many people supporting that, and who's number 1 enemy in America right now, according to the television: straight white men. So it's all connected, whether you see it or not. That's why I make these videos, right? Because even if you don't get what I'm saying now, subconsciously, you're going to think about it in your sleep. You're going to wake up tomorrow, you're going to just be this much smarter. You're welcome.
The Russian armed forces are now more than 1.1 million strong, consuming more than 7% of GDP and around 40% of government spending, which is a sum that has more than doubled over the past decade. While I've argued that Russia's campaign in Ukraine has so far been a strategic failure, with NATO bigger, more united, stronger, and spending increased amounts on rearmament, We should be under no illusions that Russia has a massive, increasingly technically sophisticated and now highly combat experienced military.
Sir Richard warned Russia is developing new and destabilizing weapons systems such as nuclear-armed torpedoes and nuclear-powered cruise missiles, putting nuclear weapons in space. As the government ramps up working with industry, what does he want society to do?
Building this industrial capacity also means we need more people who leave schools and universities to join that industry. So we need defence and political leaders to explain the importance of the industry to the nation. And we need schools and parents to encourage children and young adults to take up careers in the industry.
The war industry, this is idiotic. Why would the Russians allow you to build up an industry for the sole purpose of attacking them when you're literally just a couple of hours away by plane? It doesn't make it, it would be a huge security risk if you're openly threatening the Russians and telling them your plans. I wouldn't allow it. And if you're not going to have the Russians to back you, I'll be honest, I think Europe is cooked. They've already been invaded, so they're done. I mean, I don't know what's left of Europe anymore anyway. The last time I was there, it looked like a floating trash can, literal trash. And it's not even a vacation location anymore. Most of us are going to South America. You can't even get us to go to Europe anymore. I moved out of Germany and I never went back. I remember the boot they put to us during the lockdown. And I became a super patriot at that time because for the first time in my life, I saw the difference between the rest of the world and us. You know, I was an idiot. I used to say that America's not special. America's just like everywhere else. Everybody has freedom of speech. Everybody, da, 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 da. And I was wrong. We couldn't even talk on the internet and you couldn't speak to people in the grocery store. And if you did, they would come and pull you out of your home, beat you and arrest you. I've watched women on video be dragged over masks. Dragged. So because of that, I'm America first, but I'm America only. We'll protect our own hemisphere, the Russians or the Chinese, nor the Chinese are threatening us. We have to. And if the Europeans want to throw what little bit of sovereignty away to the Federation and just become more food for the meat grinder, then that's on them.
And we simply need more people to develop the skills that defence industry needs, like STEM, digital and project management. And we also need to harness the power of those institutions that will make the difference in war. Just as I've seen in Ukraine, where the cleverest minds from Ukrainian universities and industry are manipulating and exploiting technology to solve specific tactical problems and overcome the numerical and economic advantage.
Shut up, Britain. The Brits don't have the balls. They don't have the manpower. They don't have the firepower. They don't have anything. They're not who they were. I remember at one time they said the sun never set on the British Empire. That is not a thing anymore. They're just the kind of autistic little cousin of the Americans. But then and then the monarchy, none of it means anything anymore. It's just all ceremonial. Tony Barden says if Russia takes the Ukraine, which they already have, they can conscript those men then off to the rest of Europe. Ukraine is the bulwark against Russia. Not anymore. Maybe 3 years ago. Not anymore. But the Russians don't want the Ukraine and they don't want to take the rest of Europe, but they cannot allow you to build up forces and threaten them. Would America let Mexico threaten to build up a military so they can eventually come and hit Washington? No. We turned those sites into glass. The Russians have something called the Oreshnik that we don't understand. And they have other exotic weapons that we can't even imagine, which is what the Ukraine was. It was a testing ground. We wanted to see how hard the Russians could hit. They won't give us a real good example. They just been kind of playing pity pat. But one day, one night, they gave us an example in the west of Ukraine. They leveled 5 miles of factories in 14 seconds with the Oreshnik. And it looked like the rods of God. It looked like from the movies where they send these rods from space. It's what it looked like. We don't understand it. We don't know what it is. We just know that they have it and we don't. We know they have it, but we can't stop it. We don't have anything that can stop the hypersonic. We can't stop those, but we definitely can't stop the Oreshnik. So when they're talking about getting their sons and daughters, I wonder if he has kids. I wonder if his sons and daughters are going to be on the front line. As far as I can tell, probably not, but yours are cannon fodder. Let me know if you agree or if you disagree or if you've been following the war. I want to hear your thoughts. Like and subscribe, share the video. Remember, always, America first and America only.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.